So today I'm going to get into why I stopped being vegan. I was vegan for about just under a year back in 2016 to 2017. I'm someone who comes from a very active lifestyle when it comes to sports and fitness. I like to go to the gym, work out, and I'll jump right into why I stopped being vegan. I'll preface this with the idea that this was sort of an experiment, right? I wanted to see if this was truly the most optimal path for me in terms of my overall health, right? And I've always been open to experimenting and just trying new types of foods, new diets to see what works and what doesn't. Take in, what works, leave out what doesn't. And so, starting off with the bad things, while doing this vegan diet, I had taken some blood tests, right? And I noticed that my testosterone levels dropped. Now, someone who typically does a lot of resistance training in the weight room and gets cardio in throughout the week, sleeps, a good healthy amount of hours. It didn't make sense that my testosterone levels would drop at that time, right? And so, especially someone in their late 20s, early 30s, right? Like it didn't make sense at all. And what I can, I guess, tie that also to is I was kind of complementing that diet with a 1 meal a day approach, right? So I would eat all of my calories in kind of a shorter time span, right? Within a couple of hours, right? And then intermittent fast throughout the rest of the day, right? And yeah, usually that'd be one large meal or maybe two decent sized meals, but all compressed within a 2 to 4 hour period while intermittent fasting throughout the day. Now, when I look back at that, I probably wasn't getting an adequate amount of protein in my diet, which you'll immediately see, especially someone that may be a powerlifter or bodybuilder or high level athlete. You're going to quickly see that it's going to be very difficult to get an adequate amount of protein. You can eat as many of the soy patties and tofu as you want, but you'll realize that that just isn't sufficient. One area I probably could have improved on was maybe finding a more adequate plant-based protein supplement. And during that time when I was on that vegan diet, I wasn't too crazy about taking any protein powder supplements, especially after I've seen different studies. It's just deemed as a little bit more inferior when compared to animal-based protein powders. But either way, I'm not a fan of either, just because all of the processing involved to develop those, and especially when it comes to when you think of animal proteins, whey proteins, it's not easy on the gut, right? And so that's why not a fan of that. But going back to the things that I saw as negative, blood tests, testosterone levels dropped, didn't make sense. That was enough to make me stop, right? But you end up finding, especially when you're on a strict vegan diet, there are a lot of amino deficiencies. So yeah, you're not going to get all of the proper amino acids with just going straight vegan. You're going to have to find some type of supplementation to get those missing aminos that you typically would get from animal meat. And so what that turned into was I lost a lot of strength. Someone that was into powerlifting, I noticed about 20 to 25% of my strength had dropped dramatically, right? So let's just say if I was able to rep out squats, in the 5 to 10 rep range over 500 pounds, Well, now I can only do it over 100 pounds less, in the 400-pound range, right? If I was someone who can max out bench press well over 400 pounds, well, now I can only max out somewhere in the 300 pound range, right? So I saw a lot of my lifts drop dramatically in terms of max out ability, even though I was putting in the same amount of effort or sets in the gym, right? It's on the recovery side, that's where I was starting to deplete, right? My body was just not getting sufficient amounts of protein. And no matter how hard you try on that vegan diet, you realize that quickly you're just limited, right? You can only eat so many soy patties and tofu. Also, outside of just a health and fitness perspective, when it comes to travel, when you're strictly vegan, you do limit your experiences when you travel in the world. I remember I went to 2 new countries that I've never gone to during that time. One was Egypt and the other was China. And when I went to Egypt, fortunately, I was able to navigate and, throughout that trip and find vegan related foods, right? But I did miss out on a lot of the cuisine there, the meats, the spices that they have, the uniqueness of that cuisine in that side of the world. And so that's something that if I had to go back to, I would definitely maximize eating as many of the meats that were available to eat. When it comes to China, oh man, I missed out big time. But the beauty of that, being out there for over 10 days, I went to multiple cities, from Shanghai to Hong Kong to Xi'an to Beijing. I just got to travel all throughout, and I was still able to successfully eat a vegan diet. And that just shows you how vast the options are in China. Nothing like it is in the US. If you think Panda Express is real Chinese food, it's unfortunate. You're setting the bar very low. You have to go to China to really experience their cuisine, the full breadth of it. But with that said, I didn't eat any meat while I was on that trip, and so I missed out big time. There was also a new 1 or 2 star Michelin restaurant in Shanghai that I noticed, and I wanted to try it out, but I noticed that the main course was Peking duck. And I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to eat the meat, so it's not worth it. And back then, and looking at the value of the currency, I noticed to get this full spread Michelin star, one or 2 star rated restaurant, it was only going to cost me around $150 to have that breadth and depth of experience in that, in fine dining. And I totally skipped it because of my stringent vegan ways at the time. And so I definitely missed out on that. And you'll notice those are the kinds of things a vegan diet will do. All right, so I would say those are some of the negative experiences that I had when it comes to consuming a vegan diet. Right, now, on the flip side, let's look at the good things, right? I would say the good thing about doing that vegan diet or experiment is that I got to discover new foods, new combinations that I had never tried before, right? You really start to just navigate through the store and pick out things that you usually would overlook in the past. You're just more cognizant of, the foods you do purchase while you're walking down the aisles of the supermarkets, right? Because you're really keen in and focused on what you're buying. So it does allow for room for discovery. I would say if you're looking to lose weight quickly, yeah, vegan mixed with kind of an intermittent fasting approach will allow you to lose weight very quickly. Weight being a combination of muscle and fat. Yeah, the thing is, you'll lose fat, but you'll also lose muscle, which means you probably will lose strength, which is what I ultimately did. Now, yes, there are some of those rare athletes out there who are able to maintain or get their strength or get stronger, but you have to be extremely disciplined and on top of it in order for that. And then it also depends on where you're at in life. What is your age range? Yes, maybe in your late teens, early 20s, you can successfully be a high level athlete, vegan, but later in life, you'll start to realize, you just don't produce the hormones that you did when you're younger, and you don't process food in your gut or digest it. You don't have the acids to break down certain foods like meats and things like that as quickly as you could when you're younger. So, there will be some limitations there. I noticed that my sleep on the vegan diet was very deep. I felt like I had good energy levels when I woke up. I only needed like 5-6 hours of sleep and my body would just wake right up. I didn't need an alarm clock or anything. So mind you, that was on the vegan plus kind of an intermittent fasting diet, right? I was able to really have better control of my body and system. And with that, with hunger, I noticed I wasn't hungry. And I would probably say that it was more so on the intermittent fasting side that allowed me to control my hunger over time. Because once you do that, you don't have those constant spikes of insulin that you get from constantly snacking throughout the day, especially when it comes to carbs, or which spikes your insulin up the highest, right? And so, I was able to control. I never felt hungry during that diet. And it's because I was able to get to a place where, I was intermittent fasting for a while. And so I was used to eating in such a short time span within a 2 to 4 hour window. So whether you're going vegan or on a full carnivore diet, I would say complementing with intermittent fasting will help you control your hunger over time, meaning you won't feel the urge to be snacking all the time and eating unhealthy foods. But yeah, I would say, so those are the bad things, the good things. My overall perspective in that is just be mindful of why you're doing the diet. There isn't no one size fits all. I noticed being in that kind of realm of veganism, you start to consume and self-select into content and people within that space, right? You'll watch all of the documentaries and without thinking about, what are the agendas behind the creation of these documentaries? What's the messaging that they're trying to get out, right? And when you think of just this whole vegan movement, especially from a Western perspective in America, I mean, it's really only been around for the past 100 years, right? So looking at humanity, we've been here for thousands of years. So whenever you see something like that, where people are so dogmatic and absolute in assuming that this is the only way, where they treat it like religion, that's when you should become a little bit skeptical and at least do your own research, do your own studies to see what makes sense, right? We all have different DNA, and it'd behoove you it'd be in your best interest to do some full blood panels, look at your genetic makeup, right? Ancestry.com or 23andMe. Like, see what actually is in your genetic makeup mixed with what is your current health state via blood panels. And you'll start to get a better idea of what your health makeup is, and what types of foods are more favorable versus less favorable, right? And so with that, fine tune your diet based on that. right? And that may be a combination of everything. But whenever you go so absolute, perhaps, yeah, maybe a full carnivore diet worked for this one use case, right? Or this vegan approach worked for this other person. And it could be for a variety of reasons. They may have some type of disease or some type of some genetic related issue going on to where that type of customized diet just makes sense for them, right? And sometimes you do certain diets so that you can cure or get rid of something in your body, right? Like maybe you're trying to lose weight. Maybe it does make sense to go carnivore for a while just to start somewhere, right? To get some wins, right? And so, if your overall goal is, hey, I've been overweight, I want to lose weight, I want to lose fat, and try to maintain muscle, then whether you go carnivore or vegan, it doesn't matter. Whatever can help you get those quick wins, I think is kind of the overall goal, right? And it's okay to bounce back and forth and try and experiment with different things, right? So just when you think about veganism, or if you're considering going vegan, just understand why you want to do it, and not just because someone's been proselytizing or preaching to you that this is the way and this is why. And yes, of course, you're going to see all the positive, but right, the question is that diet sustainable based off your habits and your just natural desires in terms of what kind of cuisine you like? And then is it beneficial to you in the long run in terms of longevity? It may or may not be. You won't really know until you kind of run those experiments yourself. And, I'm sure there's some people out there that you can look into that's done it their whole life and they look perfectly healthy. But you got to remember, that's them, right? They have completely different genes, different DNA than you. So it's not a one size fits all. My overall approach is to take the good from each of the diets, incorporate it into my overall health longevity plan, and go from there, right? Like, I think that's the best one can do, is seek for the optimal aspects of each of these approaches and then incorporate it into your daily living and rinse and repeat. Just iterate over time, add the things that are working and take out the things that aren't working. And I'll leave you with that.